boundaries do not have to start at extremes. Because if they do, they kind of lose their purpose. If you make everything matter, what you will discover after that is that you will abandon yourself less and less, and you will stay loyal to yourself and your values more and more. Now, individuation comes from the ability to maintain your values and stick to them no matter what. This is also what sustains your confidence in the long run. Self-esteem, on the other hand, comes from your ability to navigate between extremes, to navigate between choices, to navigate before you make decisions that will alter your life and by the consequences of your actions determine how it will turn out. Because it will turn out one way or another. It always does. And the people who deny this fact tend to be the ones who are like this quote unquote don't worry, be happy type of people who, for a lack of a better option to fall back on, they kind of lose themselves. Nevertheless, protection is not necessary in a safe environment. And so you can follow your bliss. You can rely on your intuition. You can follow your joy and not worry and be happy. But often it is a matter of the quality of the economy that you live in, how much you can do that. Because you are part of a system, and that system is a pendulum. When you go against it by only focusing on yourself as an individual, which you are told you have the right to do, especially nowadays, you might risk having something at stake that you just do not want to lose. Sometimes that is your dignity. I want to give you an example because I feel like the West is going through something due to a little bit of a alienation from religion because of media. Andrew Tate once said that religion has been established to control female sexuality. Whether or not this is true, whether or not this has been said ever, I brought this up because I agree with this statement more than not. So, with this in mind, I want to add that religion is a pendulum in and of itself, and right now it is the basis of the economy that we live in, whether we like to admit it or not. We do still live in the past, hence we have to follow some rules, because the rules have been established in the past and they matter as much as our bliss and our joy and our happiness and our, intuition that picks up on what is wrong and what is right in the present moment. Now, the example I would like to bring up is female sexuality having kind of got out of hand in the past decades, because it all started with feminism and women's movement to kind of progress to a state of free sexuality that makes it so they all of a sudden go straight from the household where they grew up, usually, to being under the influence of a man who has no good intentions towards her, let alone protecting her whatsoever. I know this may be uncomfortable to most people to hear, but it is the truth. This is the majority of humanity in the West right now, how romantic relationships are established today. And so the more that this happens, the more traumatized women keep getting, the more they will have to depend on their self-awareness and on their ability to understand. Now, this is why I'm here, because I have been trying to understand the economy for so long, and how even households operate in this economy, which is extreme because my survival depended on it. This is Eastern Europe, right? But I'm still in the mindset of being a European. I still know what religion for me means, and still know why I did abandon it in the past at my own expense. But there were so many things that I just didn't know. Religion is an intelligent thing, a very intelligent thing, in fact. And when you abandon that because you are basically forced into a space where there is no intelligence based on religion that created the values that you grew up into and that you were raised by, inevitably you are kind of ripped of wisdom that allows you to make righteous decisions in the first place, which is why women are the gatekeepers, but men keep people accountable. They keep each other accountable. And when they miss community as well, because religion also kind of sustains and emphasizes community in a way, men will end up using women to the degree that they are shooting themselves in the foot. Now, when it comes to boundaries, women are now learning through feminism only that they have the right to stand up for themselves. And unless they do, they kind of get walked all over. So it is extreme already, because it mimics the past, it mimics the pendulums that have been on, like in the past. The thing about change is that once something is not established yet, it is easy to turn to one direction or the other. But once you choose a path and start walking on it, making small adjustments becomes the challenge. You cannot change the whole path, you cannot change the whole system, the whole trajectory, the whole fate of what you chose, unless you invest every bit of your energy into it. And it is only by doing so that you change the whole system. But I would say that generally no one is so powerful. So instead of trying to change the system, you can change your path next time better, which is why people tend to say choosing your battles makes sense, because energy exchange is very real. And when you, for example, get in a dramatic situation in public, you raise your voice and someone else hears it, even if you didn't intend to become known for that self-expression. The other person you're screaming to, or the other person you're talking to, will use your energy, and you will use their energy. You will be impacted by each other. Every time you engage in a battle, every time you lack boundaries, right? Because this is what boundaries are. It's being able to prevent yourself from damage. You exchange energies with those around you. And so, if you do that, you change. But the soul, the identity of who you are in the first place does not change much. What I'm trying to say is, battles change you in small ways, but do not waste your energy making small mistakes over either going back to where you were to recognize who you are and changing your trajectory to the right direction, or focusing on errors that you have made in the past that you can still correct, or even moving forward and doing the right thing moving forward if you have a good foundation. Because if you have a house that is built on sand, your house will be blown away by the wind. If you have a house that has been built on stone, right, your house will remain. It is that simple. Now, one unlikely addition is that there is no right thing in this universe, so you cannot get life wrong either. There are things that are most relevant in any moment, but that doesn't mean that they will be righteous forever. So, you also have the option to not even choose anymore. That is a choice. That is a choice. We all make choices as time goes on, because time is inexistent. What is time, right? As time goes on, we move with the world, because we are not still statues that never move. Because we are part of a system that moves. The earth literally rotates, so we get to rotate with it. It's not on us, to do that. But what is upon us is whether we make an effort to change with the movement, or to stay the same, or to go back. We have a lot of choices. Sometimes we make choices that lead us to more extremes than we like, because we do not realize that those are battles that in the larger picture, in the grand scale of things, are not on the top of the priority list, or hierarchy of needs even. So it is okay to neglect our needs sometimes, but it doesn't mean that our needs do not matter. Sometimes we can enforce boundaries early on without depriving ourselves in the long run. And again, going back to female sexuality, because this is such an impactful decision for every woman. For example, even what age they engage with a man in the first place for the first time, this impacts the woman's whole life. So when men are used to kind of being comfortable these days and doing less and less, in my opinion, not being kept accountable, and still being able to attach to women without getting too attached all the time, unlike women, because women are built biologically different. Women literally suffer from everything that is going on right now. So the sooner that a woman has the ability to respect her minor needs, the more she can enforce boundaries early on and protect herself from what is to come. And I understand that when a woman has such high energy levels, she seeks to express herself through sexuality, because there seems to be no outlet. And I completely understand it, but that is an outdated blueprint that women got to rely on due to suppression and a lack of a better option, really. Because it used to be the case that in patriarchy, for example, which has been created and reinforced by religion as well, women left the household only after they married. And so after they married, they got to kind of become the CEO of a household, as many men like to refer to their wives, and mothers of their children. But those children also suffered the suppression of the women that the mothers never dealt with. So it is not the solution still to kind of run from your problems and kind of enforce boundaries onto your children without teaching them why you are doing that. So let's assume that a woman has a choice to find a safe haven without a man. She gets to separate sexuality from security and therefore protect herself from exposing herself and her children to a lack of boundaries. And asserting those boundaries too late. Because, you can destroy your child and then realize, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I actually kind of like small kids, even if I am old. Like, I do want grandchildren. I do want to be the cool grandma. But because I destroyed my own children, because I thought I was one with them, because I had no boundaries around them, because I had no other outlet to express myself at, I'm kind of now, relying on myself all over again. And this is regardless of biology. This is just pure psychology. Women do go through menopause during one day of their life. And after that, things change and things get difficult for a period for, many. But what if, some problems that are only psychological could be eased by putting young women in a position where they can just feel safe, or pretend that they are safe, to somewhat heal from what happened to them as a child, and then choose how to raise children on their own. Because right now the decision for women seems to be, I either have children in one way, or I don't have children at all. But I want women to have more choices, even in having children. Again, I'm mainly talking about religion-based societies, such as patriarchal economies. I'm not talking about the rare exception of the woman who has made it in her career, who has already said, here I am, man. I made it. Amen. Leave me alone. I'm not talking about that woman who can afford to live alone, pretend that she is a man, and still have children. I'm talking about the woman who wants to, belong in a traditional way. So let's assume that I want children as a woman. I get to make the choice of having them early on. And by the way, when I had my first partner, I myself, I didn't even realize what I was doing when I took Plan B, which is a pill which impacts ovulation, so I could not get pregnant. It wasn't a choice that I even realized the impact of. I didn't realize what the loss of a relationship due to not giving that man a child would bring onto me. I didn't realize the quote-unquote freedom it would give me to choose out of motherhood at a very young age, at 19, 20 years old. So had I had chosen to have children, I probably wouldn't have had the option to have boundaries around that, because the man in my life doesn't give me support to even practice having boundaries. I do not even have a social circle. I just kind of get out in the real world and live my life as is, somehow survive, and meet my man time and time again, who's maybe even a dick. But I have children. I can scream at them all I want. I can, blame them for everything I do, What if I had more choices then? I probably would have chosen to have children, and then what? I'm a happy woman. I'm an established person. My partner is fulfilled. My partner feels needed and like a man. What's wrong with that, I am waiting for your comments because I want people to think, to use their heads. I am very much for critical thinking. So if you have a thought, please do not be or do not feel reserved to keep it to yourself. This is not the place. This is the place for discussion. I am here to continue a conversation. One of my role models started when I was 16 years old. I am here to cause your brain a storm, okay? I'm not here to protect your brain from thinking. I'm here to do the opposite. So, if I choose in 2026 not to have a child, what can I do? I can become a man, and that's about it, because otherwise, why would I even choose to not have children? If my only option to feel like a woman is by and through having children, like, am I really a womb? Am I really a reproductive organ? I'm sorry to exaggerate like that, but because extremes seem to be tolerated by this society, because anyone can have children, and yet no children of those parents can really legally separate from those parents even after a name change, because when those children are writing their last will at the age of 25 years old, say, and they think about, who will I give my inheritance to, and who will be my heirs? They think to themselves, my parents are legally tied to me even after I change my name. They will get a percentage of my possessions. But I do not want that. What if they will be notified anyway? Can I even, become an individual as a woman? Because as a man, I don't even care whether, my mother has access to me or not. Because obviously I'm her son. I have been I have been her emotional savior all my life. This is familiar to me, but if I'm a daughter, I can't live like this anymore. So I just want to know why we always have to enforce boundaries at extreme cases, like even with our family members. Like, why do not, like, I understand we choose our battles, but once we get into a battle, we seem to be kind of extreme. Like, why do we have to murder? Like, that is the most extreme of emotional self-expression, is to kill someone, because murder is based on anger, which is a cover emotion, which precedes pain, expressed and shown. Pain is vulnerable. Pain is expressing authenticity and vulnerability. It is risky. A lot is at stake. I understand. The emotion after that is fear. And when it comes to negative motivation, pain or fear is what is behind actions as motivators. Nevertheless, after those emotions surpass, understanding and love take over. But again, since anger is a cover emotion, and it serves to protect, okay, those who are ready to express their vulnerability, those who are unprotected already, and those who have no choice but to stay economically vulnerable, those people cannot fight back. Those people have no choice but to choose their battles. Their life energy depends on it. And human cruelty comes from humanity's willingness to kind of exploit nature, even though it's become obvious to humanity already that nature doesn't like that, starting with animals and animal consumption and animal well-being in general, because animals are being bred to of, level and degree and volume that I do not think is necessary. When we consume those animals, we consume the energies around which those animals grew up in, meaning all the hormones, all the, even the genetic modification tools that those beings were exposed to just kind of serve their purpose, which is grow big, grow huge fake muscles, which have been genetically modified and then be slaughtered. We, like, when we consume those products, for example, chicken nuggets, we consume everything that comes with the quality of the product. We consume the anger that the animal went through. I understand that chicken is enticing because of everything about it, but even there is a difference between chicken and chicken. So you can choose your meat as well if you have, if you can afford. You can flavor your meat and therefore suppress whatever is in the meat that does not really taste that good to begin with. But if you were to choose your meat right, you would feel the difference it gives you, which is I have, tried different types of meat in my life, and I can tell the difference between how an animal is treated while they are alive, which impacts the taste that you consume them with. For example, a chicken that's been grass-fed and, held well tastes a bit, more, how can I say, like, savory. It is not the dry muscle that is almost like 3D printed, because now people print fish these days and sell it in restaurants without letting people know that this is printed fish, because it's a scientific innovation and it's, meat, so why not sell it for a higher price? So the chicken that is, different, it tastes real, it tastes okay. Okay, so going back to human cruelty, what we eat always impacts us. For example, the other day I was eating some chicken that I got from my family, and I was like, I just ate a little bit, a tiny piece, and I couldn't sleep during the night because I haven't eaten chicken in so long, and my body couldn't understand what the hell this is. So I literally couldn't fall asleep. And I'm saying this as someone who has been a child and eaten chicken all her life. But then later I abandoned it and I switched to plant-based / pescatarian / vegetarian diet. So now I am barely eating fish, if that, But what I'm trying to say is the quality of the food you eat matters. And it impacts your thoughts and impacts everything you do. And it's not always your fault that you are presented with food that is not good for you. Sometimes you're not even aware of what's going on, but the more aware you become, the more choice you have as a being that is breathing air, It is because humanity has evolved to have such power over nature in a way that now it has arrived to crossroads between self-awareness and the luxury of having power. Because, you know what I mean? It used to be that having power meant that self-awareness is a luxury. It is not. a luxury anymore. And self-awareness is what allows for establishing the right boundaries. The right ones for you. It is always very individual. Just because you get to do less physically, and yet still murder the same amount of animals to survive, that doesn't mean that you no longer have to stop use your brain the right way. If anything, it means you have to use your brain more to survive in the long run, because if you don't, you'll just be one of those animals. Because that's what we're doing to each other as well. We're slaughtering each other with words, with indirect manipulation, with treating others as they are our own extension, and having no boundaries around them, having no standards, having no class and manners to show respect for each other, having no self-respect. And you can love yourself. You can love yourself too much, or you can love yourself too little. But there is an amount of self-love that is compatible with self-respect, which is compatible with respect towards others, which is compatible with being a useful member of society, which is compatible with feeling useful and being happy, But all of these choices, all of these qualities, all this value, all this potential, you personally have the chance to think through and decide what path you choose. Because I cannot tell you what's the right path to walk anymore. Because religion has been abandoned by society. So, I can recite things from scripture, but it doesn't mean that everyone will follow it, and I will not be cancelled all of a sudden or ostracized because of it. Like that, that's not a guarantee. I am taking a risk of using my brain as I'm standing here right now, but that doesn't mean that I have the intention of being cancelled. I am just being courageous, without causing anyone harm, possibly. But of course I will cause harm, because that is inevitable. But without killing animals, for example. Yeah, I got really passionate in this video because this is an urgent message, There is a way to fight a battle despite wanting to, and then you probably will never win. Because, if you're fighting against yourself before fighting someone, you will be defeated, because you're fighting a double battle, You are being fought against internally and externally. So deal with that resistance and then go to the battle to even decide if you want to fight it or not in the first place. Are you sure you want to eat that piece of chicken? Are you really sure? What for? What for? I'm here, I haven't been eating chicken for months, and I'm fine. I'm healthy, I'm at an ideal body weight without being, over the top to lose weight. I do my 30 minutes of exercise every second day or so, and I'm fine. Why do you need that chicken? I'm sorry.